I think coming into our first season in existence, you're kind of uncertain about the future, and you're kind of uncertain about how those players are going to react to the situation. From the beginning of the season, nobody really knew what to expect with the sport of lacrosse at Albright, and nobody really had knowledge of the game. And coming from the first game of the season where we had maybe 70, 80 people there, to the end of the season when we had hundreds and hundreds of people to come support our Lions and watch our young boys play in a championship was awesome. So as we look at some of our players for this season, we definitely have some key returners, and we have some newcomers that are going to help us out immensely this year. And it's going to be a battle every day in practice to see who can enter that starting lineup come first game of the season. In goal, we have Andrew Torak, who's a very experienced keeper. I think he was 15-3 as a starter last year. He came up huge in a lot of conference games. I think he was the 4-time Defensive Player of the Week. And he does know how to win. He does know how to play well in a big game. And at the same time, we're also happy to have some goalies behind him, like Tom Mitchell, Jordan DeZenzo, who in the offseason has done something remarkable and lost 85 to 100 pounds and has come out in great shape and is seeing the ball extremely well. Cody Sandy, Mike Donahue, and Sean Cunningham, who's one of our leaders back there, are going to be some close defenders that are going to help us in some of those tight games. We're going to ask them to do a lot for us. Those guys have different responsibilities each game, stopping the best player, stopping a guy that can finish on the crease, stopping a guy who's a feeder. At the long pole, you can't forget one of the heart and souls of our defense, Joe DeVinny, who was one of the top defensive players and probably one of the fastest and most athletic kids on our team, who's been running out there, creating havoc at the defensive midfielder, taking some of the best midfielders out of the game for the opposition. At the Faceoff X, Darian Metter is going to be taking on some of the top faceoff guys from each conference team, and even the #1 team in the nation, who had probably, arguably, the best faceoff guy in Division III lacrosse last year. So he's got a big test ahead of him, and he's one of those guys that's a fighter. He's a wrestler in high school, and he battles. At the attack position, Phil Potter is obviously our leader back there. He's our quarterback. He's a guy that creates for us on offense. He sets up plays and does a great job feeding the other guys, whoever's out there with him. Dan Foote is an excellent finisher. He's a guy that's no stranger to scoring goals, playing box lacrosse in Canada. I mean, he's a heck of a player, and we're so happy to have him in there as a guy that can finish wherever you put him on the field. I think one of the biggest surprises going into this year on our attack is Ryan Turner and what he has done in the offseason to prepare himself and to get himself in shape, ready to go for this upcoming year. And he put on 25 pounds of muscle. He's stronger around the cage. He's worked on his right hand, so he's not just a lefty threat. Now he can go both ways, with the ball. I think he stuck one in practice righty the other day, and it was great to see. The whole team went nuts because they weren't expecting him to be able to do that, and he couldn't have done that last year. TJ Holson is going to be a guy that's playing both for us. He's he's probably our offensive MVP of the team from last season, who just basically did everything for us. He's great off ball, he's great on ball, he's a good dodger, he can shoot both hands, and he does a lot of the little things that we need on offense to be able to hang in there with some of those higher caliber defenses. Brian Smith, who's one of our most athletic guys, is going to be a huge asset for us at the offensive midfield. We have guys that have been working extremely hard in the offseason to be able to compete at a high level with Brian and to help our midfield out. Mike Southwick will add some great depth and great potential. I think he's a guy that might be a dark horse on our midfield. If he can learn how to dodge and create, he can score a lot of goals for us this upcoming season. And you can't really forget about our horse there, Justin Brown, at the midfield, who can pretty much go through any check and take on any short stick midfield and dodge downhill and score a goal when you need it. This year it's just going to be interesting because every single day you have somebody different that steps up. You could have a freshman one day that comes out and really challenges a veteran from last season, scores a big goal in practice that gets everybody excited and gets everybody feeling good about the class that we had coming in. We have defenders that have stepped up in big games. In the fall, we had 2 guys, Brandon Otis, we had Kenny Pastore on defense that played remarkably well against, the national champion Dowling last year. I think when you look at last year's schedule versus this year's schedule, we've decided to amp it up a little bit this year, and for good reason. I think we got to challenge ourselves when it comes time to play a tough conference schedule. And adding a team like Stevenson to the conference, who's going to be entering the season as the number 2 team in the nation, it's going to be extremely important for us to prepare. And then you look at the other teams in the MAC conference, and we took some losses to 2 teams last year. Number 1 being Lycoming, who's going to be a young team that returns some great players. They returned the Player of the Year in the conference. And you also look at Widener, who we snuck by earlier in the season, had a great double overtime win against them, and we ended up hosting them in our side of the conference championship game. And we felt like we deserved to win that game. And being a little bit more physical and maybe a little more experienced, they were able to weather our storm a little bit and battle back and come out on top in that game. We look at our first game of the season this year, and it's against the number 1 team in the nation. It's against Cortland State, a team that I know extremely well. I got my college coaching start there, and was able to win a national championship with a great bunch of guys, and they've been back there and they've won championships since. So taking on the number 1 team in the nation is a daunting task, but I feel like we really have to look at ourselves in the mirror and see what we're made of. And taking on that team is going to be great for us. I think Coach Bevel has really given us an awesome opportunity to see how we match up with a team like them. And I'm extremely grateful for that chance. I think one of our team goals for this season is definitely to be in every single game this year. And having that number 1 team and that number 2 team in the nation, we know that there's going to be a lot of offensive firepower and a lot of great defensive players on the field that day. It's funny how lacrosse is. Sometimes the better team doesn't always win. It's the team that continues to be resilient and it takes advantage of all the opportunities that they're given toward the game and capitalizes on them. I mean, last year we were 16-3, but that was a completely different schedule. And looking at this year, we have a much tougher schedule, and we got to continue to work hard. I mean, if we don't go 16-3, I'm still going to be happy as long as we continue to progress throughout the year. After you get done with fall ball, you have to play a little waiting game until you can get back on the field next with your players and with your teammates. And it's always a mystery, how the kids are going to come into the spring season. And looking at how these guys have kind of prepared themselves, a lot of them have pushed each other in the weight room, and they've been working on their fitness, and they're coming out flying this year. Compared to last year, it's night and day. And to see that level of commitment and to know, like, in the back of these guys' minds, they want to win, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to win. When you think about any level of NCAA lacrosse and you think about All-Americans, you think about guys that have played for some great teams. And I don't think it's any different in Division III. You see the teams that year in and year out are ranked top 20 in the nation. And there are some extremely great players on those teams. I mean, you even get guys that are unbelievable players that aren't able to get that recognition. So we look at this season, and to be the best, to be an All-American, to be a team that's ranked, top 20 in the nation, you got to beat the best teams, and you got to play those players day in and day out. And as we continue to build and continue to schedule tougher games year in and year out, I think that you got to play well against those teams. You got to be able to play Cortland to a 2-goal game. You got to be able to beat a team like Cortland maybe year in, year out. And you're going to see a team like Stevenson every single year, which is great for our conference because it gives our conference some recognition. And now it shows, other other teams, other coaches, what a team like Albright can do against a Stevenson year in and year out. And so that's a process it's going to take a long period of time, and you got to get that success as a team before you're able to get that individual recognition. Right now we're just concerned about developing these young kids and bringing our freshmen along as well, and winning some games and playing well against some unbelievable teams, the number 1 and number 2 team in the nations, and a great conference schedule as well. Other than that, let the chips fall where they may. Let our season prove what our team's heart and soul is all about.